Hello, dear friends. It's such a great pleasure and honor to greet you here, participating in the next expert session of the Year of the Soul of Cities, which is today dedicated to the, I would say, a very important and a very topical issue, which is now so acute in some parts of the region. And I think that there are not only some problems, but also great opportunities in this problem. And I really hope that we will discuss it today. So today's topic is multiculturalism and civic cohesion. We will speak about diversity, migration, cultural integration. And this topic in the context of cities and urban development is also really important, because we understand that most of the cities have a very diverse population now, and it is so important for people to feel like home, even if they are changing their place, their places of residence. And at the same time, we understand that multiculturalism sometimes may be they may cause some problems to their residents of these places. So it's really important to find the ways how these multiple cultures might help and augment each other, instead of dilute or maybe somehow suppress one each other. And so what is the potential of this development? And before today's conversation, I would also like to introduce very shortly our approach. So my name is Marina Demchenko, and I am the research lead of the Living System Action Research Ecosystem, which is a global consortium of diverse research organizations from all continents, dedicated to transformation urban environments. And again, we are not only talking about cities as some municipal entities. We are looking at the cities as they're nested in the bioregions, connected with the natural environment and deep cultural aspects which each city has. So these urban environments, we try and we are committed to transform them into the thriving, resilient, and interconnected ecosystems through 4 key aspects, which are responsible stewardship, citizen engagement, participatory governance, and cross-sectoral and intercultural collaboration, which are sort of the topic of today's discussion. And we are trying to provide and to conduct this work through the reimagining of urban citizenship, rooted in deep connections to history, to nature, to culture of each place. And we perceive it as the relational field, which might be called a soul of the city or soul of the place. That is why the whole series of our events has this name, Year of the Soul of City. And as I already mentioned, we think that the soul of the particular territory is an emotional, cultural, historical, and spiritual bonds that inspire people to innovate, to flourish, to collaborate, to take collective responsibility for the well-being of every person and every non-human being at this place, and the whole planet to which we all belong. And so this idea of the home of the planet as home, the notion of the Earth citizenship, I think it's also, this notion is very important for today's conversation, because from one perspective, we are talking about differences, linguistic differences, cultural differences, but from another perspective, it's really important to take into the consideration that we all belong to one species, we all belong to one planet, and it's really important for us not to forget it in all these rather crazy situations which are taking place all over the globe. Also, this series of events is co-organized by Living Cities Action Research Ecosystem, Eco-Civilization Movement, and the Laszlo Institute of New Paradigm Research. And before we start, and before I hand over the facilitation to Ekaterina, I would like to share the video presentation of the curator and the leader of the eco-civilization movement, Violeta Bulc, who unfortunately is right now facilitating another meeting. So that's why I am happy to share her presentation and her quick address to us as the participants. Please let me know if you can see the video and if the sound is good. So please show me.
Dear colleagues, dear creators of today's and tomorrow, it is an enormous pleasure to greet you at yet another session in the series of the Year of the Soul of the Cities. This time, we will be discussing a topic which is essential for civilizational development. The civilization movement is a disruptive global cluster of people who care, a safe space for emerging engagement, collaboration, innovation, and emerging foundation, adding hopefully a bit of new knowledge and wisdom for piloting towards a future civilization. Why this topic really matters to eco-civilization? Firstly, I feel we are really compatible. We know that together we grow better, that together we can imagine more holistically the society that our inner world is craving for. Secondly, because the topics are of a great importance to both networks. We both see cities as a living field of relationship, which are invisible rivers of trust, creativity, care, and reciprocity. In eco-civilization, relationships are the essence of the next enabler of value creation. Both networks see the cities as the basic living organisms in our society, seeking balance within the greater ecosystem. And we both see cities' inhabitants as stewards of relationship, transforming cities from a space of consumption into the space of communion. In a way, we sense that the new civilizational paradigm is around the corner, that the new mindset is seeking new organizational structures, and we are invited to imagine again. Throughout thousands of years, humans somehow detached itself through mental dimensions and new aspirations from nature and started to engage with new human-based structures as cities and villages. In the last century, we went even beyond that and created a third nature, so-called virtual world, within which again a rules and opportunities emerge. That's why this call for new civilizational structures within which we can deliver a more inclusive, balanced, resilient, and at the same time sustainable world is getting so much stronger. I hope that also today's discussion will steer some emotions and thoughts in you to look beyond the known. The model that you see is just one of those humble attempts. That's why today's topic is so important for, or what I've said so far. There is an increasing global migration and mobility happening and causing a lot of disturbances and conflicts. So I hope that today's discussion will add just a bit more into understanding of these challenges and bring us closer to the solutions that are higher than the current challenges. We live today in an unprecedented mobility, international and internal migrations, whether refugees, labor migrants, or students are reshaping our populations, economies, and cities, impacting age structures, labor markets, and social dynamics. While organizations and cultures are mixing, they are bringing immense opportunity from innovation and entrepreneurship point of view to cultural richness and expanded empathy. Yet they also create tensions around identity, inclusion, and shared civic responsibility. I have experienced this firsthand, living as an immigrant and foreign student for 5 years in San Francisco, studying and working in Silicon Valley, and 5 years in Brussels, in top political roles as part of the European Commission. I witnessed both the challenges and extraordinary benefits of multicultural environments. It was tough at times, but my curiosity, different life experiences, and unique perspective allowed me to contribute meaningfully while gaining immense creative inspiration. Before I pass the word to Marina, let me just briefly mention a couple of more events that are happening within the eco-civilization movement. First, next week, there will be a yearly summit of the eco-civilization movement, and you are warmly invited to join us on Wednesday, 21st, between 15th and 19:30 Central European Time. We will reflect the learnings and inspirations of 2025 and set directions for 2026. Secondly, we are launching a new yearly topic, AI Challenge, starting in February and then being on the agenda every month until the end of the year. And finally, we are launching 2 new books based on the discussions and engagements in 2025, Leadership Challenge and Mental Health. So thank you very much for your attention. And Marina, back to you.
Thank you, Violeta. And now I would like to pass the word to the moderator and facilitator of today's meeting, Dr. Ekaterina Matveeva, who is the author of the Language Alter Ego Theory, founder of Emolingua and Lingua Plus, polyglot educated, experienced speaker, and that's the most impressive for me. She has more than 15 years of of research at the intersection of linguistics, neuroscience, multicultural education. She is the author of several books. She explores how new linguistic identities shape cultural adaptability and human performance. And she is also a co-founder of Living Cities Action Research Ecosystem. So Kate, please, the floor is yours. And I would ask you, please, to introduce our wonderful experts and esteemed guests.
Thank you so much, Marina. This is so wonderful to be here. Well, I'm really excited about this session and about this discussion. So first of all, let me bring Papa Bala. Papa, please correct me if I pronounce something wrong. What's fascinating for me about Papa's work, that you've been involved in so many organizations, all related to intercultural dialogue, migration, now also AI. You just stepped down as the president of CETAR Europe. You've been like for so long, and we even included this into, well, your presentation, right? And of course, World Council of Intercultural and Global Competence. We've talked with Darla, and then you're also there. That's fantastic because the other organizations do wonderful things. And of course, you combining your experience from Senegal and now being in Spain and in Valencia, actually in the Council of Migration, helping to integrate those people who are coming to the region locally, I think is valuable, like so valuable to the local community and also international community, just, to hear your experience. Therefore, I'm so excited, Papa, to hear today all your stories, professional stories, personal stories, anything related to intercultural dialogue. Thank you so much for being here today. Okay. Well, then, Stephanie, you are wonderful as a manager working on intersection workforce solutions in Texas, bringing on all these international workers, employees, and employers together in Texas. And you're coming from Philippines, bringing all your Asian experience, and then coming and interacting with all the American locals, and then Japanese, Korean, right, and the Mexican ones. We've talked about so many cases of cultural conflicts, misunderstandings, challenges, and how you and your team have been trying to navigate it. And I think it's going to be so interesting today to talk about, well, cultural cohesion in cities at the level of work, employment, how companies and local communities would be able to collaborate together, right? To integrate everyone and also not to dilute the local culture. So I'm really excited about today's discussion, and I want to dive into our first question and then see what will come out of it. Because the goal of this conversation is not just to talk, let's say, just to think about good experiences, but also to come up with certain steps for local administrations and their citizens that they could take in their everyday life and potentially maybe even create a toolkit. Nothing, like no pressure, nothing really ambitious, but let it be the first step on our road to provide more useful tools, practical tools that can be applicable in any city that has to work with international citizens or global citizens, and then facilitate the dialogue between the local governments, companies, universities, institutions, and international actors. All right. Okay. I think we can begin. And my first question would be for both of you. All the questions are for both of you. So in your work with migrants and multicultural, multilingual communities, so what have you noticed? How their cultural identities, personalities, the heritage is expressed or even suppressed once they arrive in a new city or new country. So on your local level, what have you noticed? What are tendencies? What are processes? What happens to people?
I can add on. First of all, thank you so much for giving us this opportunity to express our understanding about a very important key. Because when we are talking about multiculturalism or when we are talking about migration, I just want, first of all, to talk about the introductory video. I think we can take a lot of elements because she's talking about holistically networking, paradigm, society. I think all these kind of elements can be both because when we are talking about cultural identity, I think cultural identity does not disappear when people arrive in a new city because it negotiates itself. Many migrants, as well, Papa Bala, temporarily suppress language, accent, or cultural practice to access work, housing, or safety. What is the three one? To access work, housing, or safety. This is often a survival strategy. It's a survival strategy, not a free choice. Identity usually reappears in private or informal space. Just my example here in Valencia, I have been living here in Valencia over 25 years, and we have a migrant community, especially Senegalese community, and each Sunday we have a gathering, we have a cultural gathering. We are something like 300, 400 people from Senegal talking about the country and sharing our situation and trying as well to create tools to be more integrated in the local community. You can say this is often a survival strategy, not a free choice. As I say, identity usually came in a private or informal space, but when cities value a difference as a resource, people integrate without erasing who they are, right? And then it's what I can share for this first question. And then finally, I am so grateful for the strongly title, because I think this outcome today can be very useful for all of us. Thank you for the first question.
Thank you so much for sharing. Yeah, Stephanie, please jump in, and then I have follow-up questions.
Yeah, absolutely. So I can speak from my personal experience. So before I moved to the US, I've never been to any other country. I had a layover in Korea, but that's about it. So when I moved to the new city, what cultural identity have I expressed? Well, it's in our habits. It's in our the way we eat. So for example, in the Philippines, I eat with a spoon and fork. I got to the airport in LA, and most of the restaurants were only having forks. And so Papa Bala brought up a good point about survival strategy. One thing I was observing about my surrounding. How do Americans eat? And I was observing everyone around me, the table next to me, they eat with fork only. And so I started to, the moment on my first day, is like just eating with fork instead of spoon and fork. And so our cultural identity is expressed and can be suppressed when we go to a new city, expressed by the way we behave, the way we, for example, the way we eat, the way we behave, the way we interact with people. And so for me, I'm used to a very high pitch, very submissive tone. And when I got here, I learned that I have to be bold and be assertive. And so I think the cultural identity in me and being submissive to authority and being respectful to elders it was quite a challenge for me to change into being bold and assertive, especially in speaking with individuals older than me and speaking with authority. So that took quite a bit for me to overcome. But when I got into the new city, I was still fresh from the Philippines. Submissive tone, trying to eat with spoon and fork, but with the survival strategy, as Papa Bala mentioned, I observe how people interact, how people behave around me, and I tried to be like them, not necessarily suppressing my cultural identity, because when I'm back at home with my parents, we are still Filipinos. But when I go outside, I try to blend in with the people around me.
Perfect. Thank you so much for sharing. Those experiences demonstrating how people choose various strategies to fit in, to blend in, because one of their biggest fears is to get excluded, right? So when we arrive in a new country, whether it's by choice or whether we are forced to go there are different situations. We need to find a way how to get connected to the locals. Then, in this case, I have a question about the survival strategy. Well, you mentioned work, housing, safety. Great. So eventually it's all about, being safe, being included, being respected, and then given an opportunity to serve, to serve the local community. Do you think that we can modify the strategy and rephrase it, instead of survival strategy, go into some sort of adaptation mode or integration mode, where instead of turning on our amygdala, having anxiety and panic about being excluded, being rejected, sent back to our country, another country, whichever country, but like outside, could it be that we come from the willingness, fitting in, and understanding the local culture and contributing to the local culture. I understand that it's not for all the cases, because if we talk about refugees, they won't think about it. They will be coming from, amygdala, panic, anxiety, please help us, which is understandable if they are running from war or any devastating situation. If we talk about migrants who are more, let's say, on professional level or student level, do you think that it could be changed? So the strategy.
Okay, I think that's it's a very good question, and as well, it can be answered in different way, because we have an African proverb from Senegal who say, I'm talking in Wolof because Katerina, she speaks Wolof as well. Wolof, it's one of the several national Senegalese language, because as you know, Senegal, the official language is French, but we have more than 30 national language. Wolof is the most important, one of the most important. In Wolof, we say, ben loxo du tachu. It's mean ben, it's mean one. Loxo, it's mean hand. Ben, one, loxo, hand, du tachu. Tachu means clap. It means one hand doesn't clap. It means we need two hands to clap. It's the same thing. Sometimes we think about integration, it's only one way. No. Integration is two-way, right? And then I think as well, we need to sometime create this shared space. We need as well to create this shared strategy as we are doing right now. That's why I think I'm so happy about this session, because it's the same thing that we need. We need to develop together different understanding of social cohesion. That's why, as well as the title of this session is very strong, because we are talking about multiculturalism and cities. And then it's important for each of us to, like democracy. A democracy is we give something, and at the same time we keep another things for us. It means you give right and you lost right. The same things about the integration. You should create the space, because it's the space. Because integration is not only about law. It's not about institution. It's not about document. It's about sharing space. Integration is about doing effort for the local population, and as well for migrant population, or refugees, or one we can call it for the stranger who is coming to your city. And then finally, I just want to share with you something from Senegal. Senegal, our label is the country of Teranga. Teranga in Senegal, Teranga means when you have a stranger to your country or to your city or to your village, you should be happy because someone who is coming to you, it means is coming for sharing with you the well-being you have. And then it's a consideration, it's a very big respect for the migrant, for the stranger who came to you, because Senegal, country of Teranga, it means country where we open our hand to the foreigner. Because when you come, the first thing is, how are you? Have a seat. And they give you water and ask you, what was your step? Why you are here? But at other country, maybe it's first of all fear, that fear. And then I think we can as well change the narrative in many ways. Because in the vocabulary, sometimes you are talking to someone, you say, "Oh, Katerina, I think tomorrow I will not come to your session. I'm afraid. I'm afraid I will not come to your session. I'm afraid." When we are always having in the vocabulary something like that, the brain as well take it, because we are taking what you know we are talking about the brain and neuroscience and something like that. I think even on the vocabulary, we should create the one hand doesn't clap for people to try to have cohesion, to have social cohesion together, because conflict is normal. In your own house, you have conflict with your family, your father, your mother, your boyfriend, your husband, and so on. That's why I think it's a very strong question and as well very complicated to answer. But I think integration and inclusion is not one way. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Stephanie. Yeah, please.
Yeah, can you repeat the question again, Kate?
Okay, so the idea was about switching that survival approach, survival mode, to integration or adaptation mode. Instead of going from amygdala, anxiety, panic, fear, to something more open. Go into a new country, new community with an idea to serve, to contribute. Of course, when we're not talking in this case about refugees who are in their very, heightened state.
Yeah.
But more about professionals, right, of students who are coming to new countries.
Yeah. So before I moved, we had like a workshop in the Philippines about websites to go to apply for jobs. But and also what to do legally, like if you're a male, register for selective service, etc., all those legal things you have to do when you get to United States. When I got here, what I wish that would have happened to help me integrate better was to know the resources that are out there for me. So Papa Bala mentioned about access to housing, access to food. Like I wish there were more resources that I've known before I got here. What helped me integrate better was my fellow Filipino community here in the United States. And so we had relatives, connections that were already here. And so they helped us integrate better. They taught us the lifestyle in here, the way of living, what credit is, what you need to do to obtain your credit. And so your fellow countryman is the one that's already lived in the country that you're moving in, can help you integrate better because they had that experience of already coming in, adapt, integrate better. What I wish that could happen is that we could know all these things before moving into another country, especially like if you're prepared to move to another country. So you already are trying to learn the language, but what about the culture? Such as filling up your own gas. In the Philippines, somebody fills up the gas for us. In America, you fill up your own gas. So things like that little things we take for granted because it's a habit or a culture of the other country, and we don't think of sharing it to people that recently migrated, because to us it's normal, it's part of our habit, but to the people that migrated, it's not. And so I think we should also normalize talking about how we do things, such as filling up gas, how we buy groceries, what is credit or financial literacy, because different countries have different economies. And so it's very important to have financial literacy that matches to the economy of the country that you're moving on into. I did not know about credit lines. Moved to USA, oh, I have to get a line of credit. And I never learned that until from a fellow Filipino that helped us integrate here better. And so if you're a student or professional trying to move to another country, I think financial literacy is very important, as well as talking about the way of life in another country, the things that people don't normally talk about because it's part of their daily routine. So I think that's the right word, the routine, daily routine of the individuals, and that could help us integrate better.
Thank you so much for sharing. What comes to my mind, that there is still a lack of infrastructure in the cities, to welcome immigrants. But then comes to my mind that when there were migration waves, early migration waves, like 10, 15 years ago, we're talking about like 15 years ago, for instance, in Europe, there were first attempts to integrate incoming waves of immigrants, right? Same with US, so many waves, but I think, yeah, American approach is always, yeah, quite different. Still, somehow there's this lack of infrastructure that pushes people into the survival mode. Stephanie, I see. I'll finish. And then what happens is that they feel unwelcome, and then nobody kind of helps. As Stephanie, you were saying, nobody helps with basic information. Again, I think some countries already have it, basic information about local services, right? What to do when you arrive. And Papa Bala, you can also correct me if you've seen that, maybe if not in Valencia, in other cities, because I think if cities, the city councils create those checklists, okay, upon your arrival, you need to do this, that, that. How typical it is, like when you get a residence permit, you have to go to the local police, you have to register, you have to do this and that, right? Pum, 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 let's say like 5 steps. Same about you move into a new country, regardless what it is, what kind of residence, for work, for studies, just leave to remain. What you do, you go to certain institutions, you receive certain documents, you register, you open a bank account, ta ta ta. So if we have this basic information somewhere in city council available in multiple languages, that could already facilitate let's say the arrival. That's number one. Number two, about routine, Stephanie, for sure. Well, in my case, I've been for so many years observing different cultures, languages. I'm coming from international family, and also in teenage years when I had a chance to live with host families in European countries. Like, for instance, one of the early experiences was in the UK, in London. That's where I quoted the difference in routines, like this acute difference, what happens in the morning, how we have breakfast, how we have breakfast in the UK, how we have breakfast in Poland, how we have breakfast in Russia, how we have breakfast in France, and so on and so forth, right? And suddenly you start seeing through the lens of these people who would have a little bit of food in the morning, or a lot of food, or maybe something sweet, or maybe something salty. And it influences so much. Eventually, it impacts the choice, right? That everyday choice. And such routines, nobody will teach you while you are outside of that country, because you are focusing probably on language or maybe on financial stuff, economic stuff. However, you need to dive in, you need to talk to the locals if you can before coming, instead of talking to the diaspora. Yes, Gary, you both touched upon diaspora, right? So, Baba, you have your support in diaspora of Senegalese in Valencia. And you, Stephanie, mentioned that you were supported by the Filipinos, the diaspora there. And I feel that diasporas can be very helpful, but at the same time, you may end up in a bubble, like being in a bubble of your primary culture while moving to a new country, new culture. And that path of going through change, integration, without suppressing your main identity, also personality, language alter ego, what I've been studying, the idea of how you behave, right? Your, let's say, your expression, like how you express your emotions. Stephanie, you were talking about the changes, how you became bolder and all, right? That's very typical, yeah, for Filipinos, for instance. So all those changes happen when we have to face the reality of the local culture, and somehow we need to get integrated, right? So the question here would be how we can facilitate it two-way, right? So as Pavabala, you were saying that the local governments or the local authorities should somehow prepare others. Launchpad, yeah? And same time for the people arriving, I think it's very important to respect the local culture without losing their culture, respect the local culture. Because I think we've seen that some cultures come and try to become good neighbors, and some cultures come and, I'm not saying invading, but still imposing their rules or laws or worldview. And I think it's also coming from maybe values, right? Certain values, like a hierarchy of values, and how to find a dialogue there. I think it's one of the biggest challenges, because it's eventually the way of life, right? Oh, Stephanie, you wanted to say something.
Yeah. No, to answer your question, I was reminded by my fathers, because I moved here with my parents, when in Rome, be a Roman. And so that motto stuck with me, like from leaving the Philippines to moving to USA. And as you mentioned, not necessarily suppressing my culture, but also respecting the culture here. And so it was always my goal to integrate, and to act like the people here, not necessarily suppressing my culture, but also I want to respect the culture here. How do individuals express themselves? What's the culture here? And I want to respect that, because I'm the person that's moving in. And so I have to learn how people are in this country and respect that. At the same time, I want to preserve my identity. And so when I speak to individuals, they can tell I'm not from here. But also, I'm not going to impose to them that, oh, this is wrong, this is right. Because what is right for them might be a little wrong or off for me. For example, speaking with colleagues, sometimes the tone, I find it rude, when they're not trying to be rude. The tone, the way they communicate, they're just being direct. And here in America, they call it direct. For me, it took me a bit to come over it and perceive it as, okay, they're being direct, they don't mean any harm. And so I have to, it's a lot of internal work in me. It's a lot of internal work to think, okay, she's not being rude, she's just being direct. It's a lot of internal work. And what it takes is to understand the culture here. And also to understand my culture. Why am I perceiving this individual as rude? It goes back to the values of how the value of respect. The value of respect in my country is different from the value of respect here. And so it takes a lot of internal work for it to integrate. And it takes time and a lot of reflection. And it's a lot of internal work.
Thank you so much for sharing. Yeah, so this one definitely touches on values and then cultural intelligence and how individuals, whoever these individuals are, whether they are coming to a new country or they are receiving new people, how they perceive their own culture and then other cultures, and how they manage to navigate them. So developing their cultural intelligence. And then we'll go to the part of Papa Bala talking about two hands, one hand can't clap, right? Without another. So the question is, how can cities and workplaces encourage cultural preservation without reinforcing segregation or cultural silos? So if you've seen any actions, any programs, right, any policies that have this balance, respecting the local culture and then respecting culture of international workers, please share, or any ideas.
Yes, thank you for the question. I just want as well to say multiculturalism is often misunderstood because it's not simply about a different culture living side by side. And diversity alone, as you say as well, does not create cohesion. Cities can be diverse because you are living the globalization and the mondialization. Right now, here in Spain, in 2024, the Spanish government gave 20,000 digital visa. A lot of people are here in Valencia because Valencia we have 11 months soon. They're living here and working for Amsterdam, Berlin, London, Dublin, and other cities. They are doing like working here for their company, the digital nomad. It's mean city right now are very diverse. Cities are diverse and deeply as well fragmented at the same time. And then in this way, multiculturalism is not a static condition. It's a daily practice because the city itself is not neutral. It's not neutral. The city can create bridge. At the same time, the city can create walls. Just think about school or public transport or neighborhood, here in my neighborhood, or administrative office. You say it's very important, Katerina. You are trying to have work permit. You are going to the hospital. You are going to the administration to ask for a paper. How they are looking you. We can go as well about classroom of multicultural. I think school, public transport, and neighborhood administrative office can be a real classroom for multiculturalism. And now, to answer your question quickly, it can be cities and workplace can encourage cultural preservation without segregation first by creating shared space and shared project. Segregation happens when culture are kept private, symbolic, or excluded from decision making. Because many times migrants, they are not included. They ask them, but they don't give them the chance to be a creator of the decision making, right? And I think as well, inclusion happens when people are invited to co-create together, not just to celebrate separately. That's why, finally, to respond, I think when we are talking about integration, we often, very often, we can understand integration is framed as one-way effort. And the question is, who integrates into whom? Who integrates into whom, or and under whose terms, right? Because migrants are frequently perceived as people to be managed, helped, or corrected, rather as co-creator of civic life. That's why I think it can be very important to take maybe three situations or three conditions. First, recognition. People need to feel seen, not tolerated by recognizing it. 2, participation, not consultation, participation. You have to take and ask the migrant to participate, to take part of decisions that affect everyday life. And finally, as well, shared responsibility. Rights and duty belong to everyone. The city is not owned by some and inhabited by others. We are, as one hand doesn't clap, we are together in the same city, and then we should share these 3 conditions. It can be, first of all, recognize participation and shared responsibility. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Wonderful. Stephanie.
So what can workplaces do? So in my workplace, we actually went through a training of looking at the values of Mexicans and the values of Americans, looking at them both together. What I wish each workplace would do is to go through some training and to have everybody go through the training. So let's say you have a person that's coming from Korea and it will be your employee. Have everybody go through the training about looking at Korean lenses, because that could improve communication. There are many times where I hear from companies or employers saying they often have miscommunication conflicts. It's because of cultural differences. Hispanics versus Americans, Asians, Hispanics. And so when I went through the training of looking at the Mexican values and the American values, that really helped me open my eyes and figure out how to bridge, communicate between the two. And all of us in my workplace took the same training together. And so I think that participation from everybody going through the same training, looking at the country's lenses, and if you have somebody new in your workplace, have everyone look at the values of that country, because it can create a better workplace, because the communication will get better.
So to translate this experience, we would say that workplaces and city councils that receive immigrants need to have a look at the maps of their values, so the local values and then values of the communities that come in to their country in order to understand them better, and then to provide similar training for all the migrants who are coming in, saying, if you'd like to be part of the community, well, we would like to understand you better, but you also need to understand us, understand the local place better. Here are values, here's what's important, and we are trying to understand you as much as you're trying to understand us, and then we can co-create something together. And following Papa Baller's ideas about who integrates whom and under which terms, it seems when we come to somebody's home, we should respect their terms, their rules. Of course, the host country may have to adapt a little bit and bend some rules for the newcomers, but still, it's their home, and we're coming there. So if we're coming there, we are, of course, preserving our values, our interests, some routine, and then we need to find how to strike balance between what's there and what we are bringing. And out of what we are bringing, also what will serve the local community. Then probably we are coming to the point of co-creating together and sharing the responsibility, because if we talk about skilled workers, we know that they can bring their professionalism, right? Maybe they're engineers, right? Or maybe they're manufacturers. So Stephanie has been working with a lot of such people. They bring their expertise, first of all, the expertise at the local, so that the new home country is looking for. So they are valued for it. But then there's communication. And often there is this miscommunication happening either between management and their employees on the floor, perhaps as well, of course, the city council, and then people coming in for certain documentation and the different conditions. So there, in the moment of contact, we need to find the way how to smooth it, in a way how to smooth those challenges, miscommunication happening in the moment when worldviews collide, basically. As maybe, as you were saying, maybe in the home country where the immigrants coming from, certain practices don't exist, or they didn't exist in the past, right? And now when they come into new country, suddenly they need to learn to live in a new way. So that, I think, something that we need to take into account and bring to city councils. That there should be training on both ways in terms of cultural values, certain realities, worldviews, but also it's about equipping immigrant communities with knowledge about the local culture. But it's not just local culture, it's also your local routine, do's and don'ts, and then how also to participate, how to tip in, how to share responsibility altogether and decision making. So perhaps advisor and city councils on changing the perception of immigrants as just those who are in need of help, and saying they are actually those who can contribute as much as a local community could help, especially those skilled individuals. Okay, more questions. So then let's talk about emotional connection to the city. So from your experience, how does multilingualism impact people's ability to emotionally connect with the city and the community? Multilingualism could be as well, yeah, multiculturalism. So how does it affect people's ability to emotionally connect with the city and the community, or communities in the city?
Thank you so much, Katerina. That's as a very good question. I just want to deep about what you said before. I think
Sure.
the lack of having many resources for the city council is clear, because just the diaspora Senegalese here in Valencia, we are having a regular meeting on Sunday to share information about a small job, because as you know here, migrant they have three sector here in Valencia and Spain in general. It's about agriculture. We are every day going a lot of fruits that you are seeing in the supermarket is coming from migrant community, or construction. We are building house, or service tourism, because here in Valencia we have a stronger tourism infrastructure. And then during our gathering, we are sharing a different work, small job. You can say, oh, blah, 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 tomorrow with my boss, we need someone who can help. And then that's only to say, you write about the city council need to have many package of information helping newcomer about language, because when I was learning to speak Spanish, my Spanish teacher said, you need to learn and you need to speak Spanish. It can be good for you first for having job. If you speak Spanish, you can be more prepared to enter to the labor market when you are not speaking Spanish. That's why it can be important as well, the city council to have a lot of package of resources to help the newcomer. And now, I think belonging is built through a practical system because city council as well need to have mediator. Here in Valencia, I am a social mediator, helping migration integration between the local community, between the administration as well, and the migrant community, doing as an interpret for Wolof and French and something like sometimes as well English. I think we need as well two-way mentoring. I think mentoring as well can be helpful. We need a multilingual school. Here in Valencia, I have 3 kids. They are going every day to learn Spanish school. They never had any information about Africa. Any information about Africa. I think as well, if you have this kind of student, it can be helpful one day a month or during the academical year, 3 times to organize or invite one African to invite me to share in the classroom about African culture, about African language, to share something from my identity to empower a little bit the student migrant who is in this class. I think developing this kind of multilingual school can be as well good. We need as well to have visible public space for encounter. We need as well a multilingual service help newcomer to feel at home without giving up their identity. It's like the example that I shared. In this classroom, I was giving a short conference in different class. When I went to one class, it was one boy from Senegal, and I entered to the class, and he was very proud because it was the first time to see a teacher, a black African teacher. And then after she comes to me, how are you? Where you come from? I say, I come from Senegal. She say, oh, my father is from Senegal. And then I think as well, we need to change a little bit the environment and give migrant community the possibility to share sometime their cultural or multilingual identity in the classroom, because I think the message must be clear. You don't need to disappear to belong. You can belong without disappearing, and then that's why it can be good to foster this kind of connection between migrant community and classroom, because the classroom is very important for the student to have this kind of connection to develop as well multilingualism, who can be facilitated by the city council, because the city council here in Valencia, for example, we say the city council is the stronger institution, better than the national institution, because here in Spain, the national institution like the Minister of Education or the government in Madrid, the city council is more close to migrant community. That's why the city council need to be really prepared. As you say, you are right, because in the city council we don't have a lot of infrastructure, and we need it. We needed to prepare not only the migrant, but to prepare as well the city council to be more open, helping the well-being not only the migrant but all the people who are living in this city, because the migrant as well, most of them, they are contributing, even their contribution sometimes as invisible. Thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing, Stephanie.
Yeah, so how can being multilingual help us emotionally connect with the community we're moving in? It actually helped me have more empathy and being open-minded. So being multilingual, different languages in your head, when you communicate with individuals, let's say when I communicate here in America, I think of English. In my mind, it's in English instead versus my own language. And so it helped me connect with them emotionally, being open-minded, having that more empathy. And actually, it helped me connect better. When you learn multiple languages, when you've seen the world, you have an open view of everything. And I think it helped me on my empathy. It helped me better connect to people. And yeah, that's my answer.
Thank you so much. And then Stephanie, when we talk about your work practice, where you've been collaborating with a lot of international companies so that are coming to Texas, what were the biggest challenges for those companies that were coming and were deciding to come to the US and to Texas? What were their apprehensions and fears, and how, like on cultural, let's say, migration level? So how could you help them, or how you are still trying to help find their solutions?
Yeah, absolutely. So the solutions that I'm trying to help, because this is coming from my experience, is cultural trainings. As I mentioned earlier, like looking at the lens of the country you're moving in, the values of the country that you're moving in, and also the country that you're coming from, and have everyone look at those values that could help bridge the gap. The way the leadership style here could be very different from the country I'm coming from. Another way is for leaders, and I'm talking about the leaders in the workplaces, empower your people. My supervisor empowers me to speak up, empowers me to share my ideas. And she understands where I'm coming from, because I've also shared that I'm not used to speaking up in front of a supervisor, or I'm not used to being consulted in decisions. I follow the authority. And so that empowerment from my supervisor telling me it's okay, you can do this, you can speak up. I think leaders in workplaces also have the role to empower their employees, regardless of where they're coming from, and to also help them navigate in the workplace. And so cultural trainings, and also I think with the leaders, that comes with the leadership trainings too, how to better create a multicultural environment in the workplace, and that is also being stewarded by the leaders.
Thank you so much for sharing. So in this case here, we definitely have a lot of recommendations for city council, for employers, in terms of training, infrastructure, leadership, inviting newcomers to contribute, to co-create, to share responsibility. I think the question is like where to start. Marina is writing. Yeah, Marina, you can speak up because I feel we are coming towards the end. Yeah.
Yeah, I just wanted to suggest us, as we have some time, we have some questions, and unfortunately, Robert asked a good question, but he had to leave after an hour of our conversation. And before we come to questions, I wanted to ask you, Ekaterina, as well, because you have so huge experience of living in different cultures and communicating with various people, starting from maybe young employees, finishing high professors and local authorities. So speaking about your own invaluable perspective and experience, would you also share your vision? I think that both guys would be interested in this, and as well, I hope that our audience will also be interested, and this would be included into our final summary and principles, which we hope to create based on this conversation.
Thank you, Marina. Pretty much what Papa Bala and Stephanie have been sharing. I definitely stand by their opinions, because eventually what happens is it's kind of a debacle, right? We have newcomers, we're trying to help them, to accommodate them. Or let's say I'm saying here that we understand that, being also migrants in so many countries. But we also know the reality that in some countries, local authorities are apprehensive or afraid of migrants, right? And why this happens? Because there've been, reputations. Certain cultures have earned certain reputations. And that's also a problem, because then we run into stereotypes. So that's quite a challenge. But if we go back to the very first question, identity or personality, so definitely we should dive into psychology or cross-cultural psychology. And I know, Stephanie, you studied psychology. So we are all human beings. We're the same species. We have our core self. However, values that are shaped during our childhood, our teenage years, are directly influenced by our socio-cultural environment. And typically in cultures where we grow up, we pick up those values, especially those hierarchies of values. And these values then influence the way how we make decisions, how we see the life. So they create our own certain lens, right? And they help us to build a certain personality in that language and culture. And when I talk about personality, I'm not just saying about our core self. We have our core self, but then according to Carl Jung, we have different selves, different personas, different masks, meaning that we can change personalities like identities. Identity, it's a feeling of belonging. I belong to a certain communities. Personality, it's the way how I behave, how I express my emotions, like my behavior in certain conditions. So, and of course, when we switch identity, we may also switch personality and vice versa. So what happens is when we come to a new culture, to a new language, we start building up a new personality. And Stephanie, what you were describing when you were observing American people and you were trying to blend in without erasing your own identity and personality that you've already carved out in the Philippines, you started creating your own American personality, the way how you boldly behave and all. I can tell you same happened to me in the US when I started coming more and more to the US, because my British personality was always, kind of like beating around the bush. So that's a big difference, because you start seeing the contrast even within, let's say, the same linguistic family. We talk about British English and American English. So when we create a new personality, suddenly we start having different faces. So personas. And Papa Bala, coming back to you, when you were learning Spanish, I'm sure French helped you that you were learning Spanish. Still proudly carrying your roots, being there as a Senegalese migrant, but also integrating Spanish culture inside yourself, becoming a little bit more Spanish, given that you've lived in Valencia for 25 years. I'm sure that you also picked up some of the local routine, even though, of course, you're deeply in touch with your Senegalese community. think, yeah, it's about balancing out different cultures, but then you also created their personality, and what happened, it enriched you. Because when we learn new languages and new cultures, first of all, what we do, we create this internal enrichment, because suddenly we expand our horizon, we expand our worldview, we multiply our worldviews. We develop empathy, compassion, we learn how to switch perspectives, we learn even how to switch the hierarchy of values, knowing that in certain cultures, our original values or values from a particular culture may clash, and learn how to do about that, how to deal with this when suddenly you have an internal conflict, because you know that if you were to speak from your say Filipino self, you would do one thing, but in American self, you would do something completely opposite. Quite tricky, but also it fosters your self-development and growth. I think that's what's important. And from there, of course, looking at our perspective as migrants, so yeah, we are growing, we are more resilient, we are more adaptable, we are more creative. And we bring all of that to the table of local authorities, local governments, where we come saying, hey, we would like to get a job here, or maybe we would like to create a project here. We would like to express our talents and our knowledge here. Then, coming back to Papa Bala's proverb, we need to see the second hand from the local authorities, employers, and city councils. And it's like, with bilingualism, 60, 70 years ago, bilingualism was considered to be dangerous. And scientists were telling young mothers to avoid speaking in multiple languages to their kids, because then they would become retarded, or they would have epileptic episodes and so on. I feel something like this has been happening. I'm not saying in all the countries, but in some countries, about multiculturalism. So I hope it will change when more and more cities, let's start on the level of towns and cities, will notice the benefit of multilingualism and multiculturalism. But again, in balance, in harmony. When we talk about balance and harmony, we first of all think about peaceful coexistence. And Indonesia, I'm not saying all of their history, all of their time, but in certain periods of time, has proved to be quite a good place as a melting pot for multiple cultures, religions, and all. But they also had some bad days. So when we managed to create, I don't want to say a melting pot, but a community where city council would take into account voices from different communities. Of course, we have the local community, and then we have migrant communities coming from various cultures, languages, and then create new projects, infrastructure together for a better life in the city for everyone, for the locals and for immigrants. I think that's when we will end up in a better, let's say, not only in a better city, but in a better country. But it takes work, and it takes willingness and open-mindedness. And I think, to your point, guys, when you were sharing about training both sides, saying that yes, we need some sort of training on values and perspectives as well for the locals. We need to ensure that the locals also learn at least one language, right? And that they actually open up to a new culture, because otherwise they will stay at the level of black and white. This is my opinion, therefore yours is wrong. Meaning that it's very difficult for some of them to switch perspectives. And I think that's the most important right now, the most important skill, to learn to switch perspectives in this case. Because if the locals also can switch perspectives, then it will become much easier to build a dialogue.
Yeah, thank you so much for this. And I'm sorry, so speaking about this second hand to clap. You know, we have discussed how the migrant can integrate and what might be done in order to feel more comfortable in the new environment. But speaking about the hospitable hosts, from one perspective, we already discussed, and you mentioned that it's really important for local people also to train this capability to switch perspectives and to understand people with different cultures and accept them. But at the same time, in order to stay hospitable hosts, what I also may see, can see the different perspective that sometimes native residents trying to be polite. So, and this might be an uncomfortable question, but how to stay polite without, but at the same time to prevent rude behavior of people who came and just behave as they used to. So where is this thin border between hospitality and being so open that nobody respects your own home? So that's the question that is really important for me, because living in the UK, I also have the background from Russia, from one of the most multicultural regions from the south of Russia. So we have more than 100 different nationalities that are living in the Rostov region. And at the same time, I understand that this is a very acute problem, both for UK, for US, for European Union, for most of the countries, and I think for most of the world as well. We could also ask indigenous people how they look at this perspective in terms of decolonization, but that's maybe even another conversation. So that's the question for three of you. How do you think, again, to change perspectives? I understand that we all four are migrants to some extent, but at the same time, speaking about being the people who are residents in some place, what about this politeness, hospitality without, again, but the capacity to protect what is dear for us as people who are living in this territory?
I can answer that. So like as a migrant, I always had a number one rule, and that's to respect the host, respect the local Inuits. As a host, because now I feel like I'm a host whenever I have cousins, family members come from Canada, educate them. I think as a host, we need to educate our guests how it is. Let's say I had cousins from Canada. I educated them what is large in Texas, because everything's big in Texas. What's large here is I mean, what's medium here, what's medium here is large for them in cup sizes. So I think as a host, I'm using like just an example. As a host, I think we need to educate our guests. And that's being polite, educating without telling them you should do this. No, but educate them. Oh, here, this is the way we do it here because so and so we have this value. So I think it comes from education without imposing to them and without telling them that they're wrong if they make a mistake. No, just simply educate what we do and why, because of the value here.
Yes, I think, Marina, you raise it a very strong question because it's as well what Stephanie said. In Senegal, we say, when you are going abroad, you should. It's like the same Stephanie said about Rome. In Senegal, we have the same things. We say in Wolof, boo demee si dëkk da ngay xool nit ñi ni ñuy doxee nga topp seen tànk. It means when you are going in another country, you should look people how they are working, and you try to know how they are working, and you follow their step. At the same time as well, education about a different way, because if I am willing to understand your culture, I'm willing to get the tolerance, I'm willing to develop that the title said, because I love the title, Multiculturalism and Civic Cohesion, that I think is very stronger that we need right now, about the polarization and others. I think it can be important if I'm trying to understand your culture, I'm trying to respect your culture. Respect as well, it's reciprocal. If I'm trying to make effort, I think you should as well do the same thing. It's mean what you say, Marina, it's important because diversity is not a problem to manage. No, it's a capacity to cultivate it. That's easy, of course, question. Diversity is not a problem to manage. It's a capacity to cultivate. It means if I am willing to not make any mistakes because I respect you, I think as well you should respect me because respect is reciprocal. If we decide together to respect us and to share and to take care about dignity, the human dignity. I think the human dignity is as well for migrant, it's as well for local community. I think finally it can be very important for each of us to make effort. The same things what I'm sharing as well during our gathering. I told them, you are here, you should respect the law. If they say you cannot do this one, yes. Why? Because the law. You say, okay, I respect the law. Because if you respect the law respect you. But if you are here, you say, okay, I'm living as I am in Senegal because I can make a sound system. Because in Senegal, you can have music loud, no problem, because it's a big space. But here, you have people up, you have people down. In your same house, you should be say to your kids, oh, somebody is living down or somebody is living up. You have to control everything. You are not here because you are living as you are in Senegal. No, you are here. It's not an environment. It's not a culture. It's not a law. You have to follow the rules, right? And if I follow the rules, at the same time, people should say, okay, I have Papa Bala. It's my neighborhood. It's from Africa, but it's a human being. I have to respect as well Papa Bala. And then that's why I think respect is reciprocal. If you respect for each one, you can have a civic cohesion that we're talking about today. Thank you.
And I'd like to add that to Papa about respect is very important because I had this conversation with my father, let's say with respect to birthdays. Like for Filipinos, if I'm the one having a birthday, I have to treat everybody out. Well, in here, if I get invited in US for a birthday, I have to pay my own meal at the birthday party. And my dad said, oh, that is so wrong. That's not good. And so reminded me what Papa Bala said, respect. I said, no, Dad, it's just different. I respect that culture. I respect their culture. It's just different. And so, and Papa Bala is correct. Respect goes both ways. I think internally, we all have to think that no culture is better than the other. We have to think that each culture is different and we have to respect it, and it comes from our internal mind.
Beautiful. Thank you. I'll add a little bit more. I think, Marina, it goes down again to the hierarchy of values. Some cultures are more, I would say, peaceful in a way that they're more attuned to harmony. So they are more inclined to peaceful coexistence. And some cultures have more of competition, authority, and other values that are staying there at the top, and they will respond to that when they are clashing with another view. And I think we need to be very careful here to understand better cultures people coming from diverse cultures, how they see themselves as part of a new community. Because even though, yeah, Stephanie is saying, and I agree with that, that's a law, like that's a universal law. There is no culture that is superior than the other. That's very important. Still, we know that from time to time, I'm not saying, I don't want to generalize, I would say some individuals or communities within certain cultures behave in that way when coming to new countries. And in order to eradicate it, I think we need to turn inward. We need to turn within our own cultures to education, and help young people learn more about this world, about the infinity of cultures and their languages and perspectives. But it is like, it takes a long way, meaning that we will need years to get there. Because still right now, we know that there is fashion for certain languages, there is fashion for certain cultures, pop cultures, TV series, music. And it comes and goes, right? Because there are certain periods when certain cultures get obsessed with other cultures, let's say on mass media level. But what eventually is necessary to do is to find a way to help different cultures understand on their own level, on their own, let's say, system of values, in their own system of values, why it's important to go and to respect the other way. And when I say to find a certain way, because again, based on all these hierarchies of values, we will have to change our approach. Or let's say communities have to change their approach, the way how to speak to certain cultures, to certain communities, saying, hey, you can't do it here like this. There are cultures that respect more force, right? So that's what I was saying, authority. Does it mean that we need to apply, in this case, the same rule or the same magnitude of reply to all the rest of the cultures? No, we don't, because in certain cultures we have, let's say, soft power. Okay, it's different approach, different way of response. So it's like how to organize a system that everybody will understand, at a very deep level, that if you do this, it won't be good. Or if you do that, it's going to be valued, respected, and appreciated. It's a very tricky question, but essentially it all goes down to respecting the local ways, the countries where you're going, learning the language, learning their legal system, financial system, all the basics, history, learning to take a new perspective and then go in. And then like sharing those two cultures, at least two, in one head.
I have an idea that I actually thought as we were talking. So, where do cultures meet? First point of entry, usually at the airports, usually at the hotels. And so, at the airports, hotels, we often see brochures of beautiful places to go. When in Japan or when in the Philippines, these are places to go. Why not add on these brochures about the values of the place? So you have the beautiful places to go, beautiful places to see. What about the values of that place? And so it's just an idea in my mind that with technology right now, with information that is immediately being handed, to you with nowadays technology. Like when I go to a hotel, I see different brochures of different places, and I would go and look at it, or I Google things to do. But I think we should also probably add something about the values of that places, behind the things to do, behind places to see. So just a little bit of idea. It might take us years to get there, but it's just an idea.
Yeah, that's really cool, and I think that it's open, so not only things to do, but also rules and norms to follow. And I know that such practice exists, for example, in Emirates, and in some of countries where you know that some things are simply prohibited there, so that's normal. And at the same time, you understand that when you're coming, you are respecting. Also, we had the conversation with some of young leaders from Slovenia, and she was she said that it was so pity for them to see that tourists who come to their beautiful parks and their beautiful forests, they leave their garbage somewhere in the park without utilizing it in some proper way, but there are no any signs on how to do it there. And then I asked, why is it so? She said, because not everybody know how to do it, but it's not obvious for people who came from another country. So yes, and of course, the park is not the best place, because first people come to airport, they come to the hotel, and that's the first place where a person can get acquainted with the culture, with local norms, and understand what to do. Yeah, that's really cool idea. Yeah, thank you. So guys, before finalizing, I think that we more or less addressed the question, but again, I promise to our audience that we will address their questions as well. So Roberts wrote us that, do you think or feel that we might have certain ingrained attachments to our identity, quote unquote, meaning a lot of attachment are connected to cultural background, experiences, and such, but how far are we possibly tricked into these illusionary borders in our minds? I realize that there is much more to it, but are we able to let go of some of these attachments without actually losing your or our true self-identity? Again, speaking about language alter ego and true identity, which might give us another realm into what integration is about. So we a little bit touched this, but maybe you could also add something into this ideas.
I think there is no true actual self-identity or whatever Robert meant. First, we have a self, you're at the core, but then we have all these masks and all these ideas that represent us and our memories. And as we know, our memories are encoded in a particular language, like the language that we speak. And let's say if we speak multiple languages, then all our memories are encoded in those multiple languages. And I'm sure Stephanie and Papa and Marina, you've experienced that one day you're speaking one language, so you will remember that day in that specific language. Like all your emotions and feelings will be attached to that language. And then next day you will be speaking another language and you will have all your memories encoded in that language. And if a certain situation happens, a distressful situation, maybe a trauma is formed, like psychological trauma, in a particular language, then what happens, you will carry this trauma more acutely in that language. Right? And if you switch to another language, you won't feel it as strongly. You will still feel it, but there will be some sort of filter because you switched your code, different language. So trying to answer a question about attachment, I think, again, it depends on values. It depends on the upbringing. There are people who feel to their bones being a certain culture, being monocultural, and not being culturally receptive. There are a lot of such people, and what happens is that when they go to another culture, another country, they don't speak other languages, they know bare minimum about other cultures, and they just who they are, like in that culture, in that language, just bringing themselves there without adapting. And they're typically those people growing up in a monocultural community, monolinguistic community. They just feel that other people should adapt to them. This happens pretty much in every culture. So it's not just, oh, this one particular culture is prone to that. It happens pretty much in all the cultures. It's just such type. And then, yeah, we can say that these people are attached to their culture. And I'm saying it's, well, nothing wrong if these people don't harm anyone, right? So they continue living, and also they can become your good friends. But when we talk about multilingual, multicultural people, I think it depends under which circumstances they decided to go to other cultures, whether it was out of their free will, free choice, or whether they were forced to go. And I feel that those migrants, those refugees that were forced out of their land to go to another culture, another country, feel this strong connection to their culture, their language, and they want them to kind of to hold to it and to show that they still preserve their culture and language even if they haven't been to their country, for 20, 40 years and so on. And you can see quite a lot of communities like that now formed of second and third generation of immigrants. But again, there are different cases. So those who are multilingual, multicultural, more, let's say, by choice, maybe they were okay in their country, but then they saw more opportunities, or they got married, or they went to study, but it was more, let's say, more under peaceful conditions. Then definitely it's more about, I would say, creation of those personalities and identities across languages and cultures, and adaptability to multilingualism, multiculturalism under modern circumstances.
And I have an answer to that question to Marina. It's a lot of internal conflict, self-conflict, say. Unfortunately, there were a few of attachment to cultures that I have to let go in order to survive. And that's the hard reality for me personally, is that there's a few attachments of culture I had to let go just to survive. And sorry.
Sorry, yeah, please, Stephanie. I just added Sharaya because I just wanted to suggest her to share her own experience after you finish your ideas, because again, I think that before finalizing, we can give some word to our participants as well. So sorry, Stephanie, could you?
No, I just want to add, it's always, I always experience this internal conflict. And it's internal conflict within me. So that's always, it's like every day for me.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for sharing this. Papa Bala, would you like to add something from your side?
Maybe I want to add a little bit quickly, because right now we are living the globalization and the modernization. It means one culture, one identity doesn't fit anymore. We have a multi-identity, we have a multi-culture, we have multi-layer. It's like what Catherine said about Austerlitz. It was it was Dutch citizenship who create the different signification of culture in different part of the world. I just want to say a personal story, because when I came here in Valencia, working 2 months, because Valencia, Spain, wasn't my migration project. My migration project was to go to Paris in France, still learning, because yes, I'm speaking French. French is I can say, my mother tongue. It was for me more easy to enter quickly to the French society. And here in Valencia, working 2 months as a street vendor, I took every week 1 day for me without working, reading, working in the street, learning about the city. And one day I went here to the city center, Barrio del Carmen, and El Museo del Carmen is a museum. I was looking about artwork with my traditional clothes, and I saw two persons look at me like, what he doing here? He is an African clothes, enjoying artwork, because a lot of people thinks a museum is only for elite person. They don't understand a simple migrant as me can get connection with artworks. As well, they didn't know in Senegal before coming here, my friends, one of my closer environment, social environment, was ambassador, consul, and central cultural, director of central cultural of a different country accredited in Senegal. And then they didn't know as well, I am from fine arts. And then 10 minutes later, a Spanish lady, a Valencian, came close to me, and I greeting her. I told her, "Hola," and she answered with a smile. When she answered with a smile, I said, "Oh, good point." It means she didn't think I'm not from this planet. And I still talking to her since that day. She's the mother of my 3 kids. And then right now, my kids, they have a double identity. They're here, they're African, they're as well Spanish. They have a double identity, they have a double culture, even they have a double religion. Because I am a Muslim practicant, my wife, she's a Christian practicant. Here in my home, you have the iconography of Muslim and Christian. I'm going to the church with my traditional clothes. People are looking at me. But I think one culture, one spirit, and one identity now that doesn't go longer. It's our multiculturalism, our multi-identity. Identity is a multi kind of layers. And then only one right now doesn't fit in anymore in our society. It's just what I want to share about your question. Thank you.
This is so beautiful, Paul. Thank you so much. And Stephanie, thank you as well. I was just, listening to both of you, and I remembered a very important thing when we were talking about monoculture, right? Monolinguistics communities. I think as part of training, we should. Uh-oh, I froze? No,
No,
I
no,
didn't.
no.
I was like, you all froze, and I was like, okay. So I think all, if not all, but certain, say, representatives of monocultures, monolinguistic communities should find themselves in the situation of minority. I had this experience in Senegal. It was, I think, the first very acute one. Before that, I was in China, and later after a year, I also lived in China. I was in Japan and all. But I remember how I was walking in Dakar, just along the embankment, and it was sunset, beautiful. A lot of people, a lot of young people were running, a lot of athletes there. And I realized that maybe a kilometer in front of me and like a kilometer behind me, as long as you can see, there were no other, white-skinned people. They were all local people, all dark-skinned people of different shades, but they were all local. So I felt, the only white crowd, literally, in a way. And it was so interesting because I realized, like, visually, how a person might feel being, in the opposite situation, right? But you need to feel it. You need to feel it visually. You need to feel it like with your bones, with your skin. It was so strong because, me not being from the US, like it took me quite a long time to understand the history of what was going on there, with segregation, racism, and all, because you're kind of like didn't know that from like, let's say, my background. So now like putting it all together, kind of, having this lived experiences, I think it is fascinating to put certain people into such conditions where they see, oh, I'm in minority. Suddenly I feel, like I can't like, not it's just like I can't relate. It's not about this. It's just like, oh, I'm on my own, kind of, right? Or I don't have enough if something happens. But then you think, but why would something happen, right? Because you're in minority. So it's a very interesting psychological trait. And the same, of course, in Asia, because suddenly, even if for like you speak Chinese, you speak Japanese, because of the face, because of the height, you are not, you're not like fitting in. But it's quite interesting because still, if you follow the rules, if you follow certain rituals, you start becoming more and more local. It's quite interesting. It's fascinating. So yeah.
That's great. Sharaya, we already are coming to an end, but if you have a couple of words to join us, please do so. And while we are waiting for, or otherwise, thanks for sharing your message in the chat. So the message was about the hard experience in Japan, I think.
Yeah. Can you hear?
Yeah, we can hear you, but please try to be succinct because we need to finalize in 8 minutes. So just maybe a couple of words of your experience. Thanks for sharing, by the way.
Thank you very much. I'm really thankful to you all for organizing such things. I learned a lot about other countries. In Japan, I'm living for a long time as a foreigner. So I also felt some problems, and also I think Japanese people are polite. When you live in any country, I think we should actually learn their culture, adopt that. I also always appreciate that. But sometimes in Japan, they for foreigner, if you think about for foreigner, they're all rules and regulation. Actually, they try to impose them in Japanese. So sometimes it's really difficult for some people, because there are different classes people are living in Japan, working. So sometimes it's really inconvenient, I think, especially for children. The school's rules and everything all are written in Japanese. So, and bullying is really, it's severe here. And sometimes if you complain, if you go to the office, and it doesn't actually work. So every country has such things. So we always believe that such kind of things, actually, if we talk about that, we learn about that, and if we share about that, then we can and make the better world for everyone. That's all.
Thank you so much for sharing. Thank you. And I really think that it's also it's personal experience, because again, I had not a good personal experience in Spain, for example, but I think that it's not about the country, but it's mostly about my own experience. And so, yeah, again, I have some friends in Japan, Ukrainian, with a Ukrainian origin, and they also said that it's really difficult to live in this country without knowing the language. But again, let's refer to the beginning of our conversation, which is about the knowing the culture and the norms when you are coming to the country, and be prepared that sometimes you will feel uncomfortable, and that's normal. And sometimes I feel uncomfortable in the UK with my Russian background, because also the cultures are rather different. And so again, thanks for sharing, guys. You shared an incredible stories of your own and your perspective and your working experience. Kate, maybe you could finalize just last 5 minutes and a couple of words from each of you, just to make some outcome of all the conversation and what have we learned and what might be suggested to the cities. And again, lots of things which left unspoken, but I hope that sometime we will come again and continue this very important discussion. Thanks a lot. My heartfelt gratitude to you for this. Kate, please.
I think Papabalo and Stephanie, whatever you have to share, if anything comes to your mind right now, feel free to jump in so that we can summarize and close. Yeah.
Yeah, for me, be open-minded.
Wonderful. Papabala, for you?
Yeah, I think first of all, thank you so much for the invitation. I just want to say civic cohesion, it's not only a technical challenge, it's an ethical choice. I think we should bring ethics in everything about migration and cohesion and civic cohesion. Every interaction, every policy, every silence contribute to the kind of city we are building. And then finally, I have a question. What kind of city are we actively building through our everyday decision? And then I will finalize with what Marina said. For me, diversity is not a problem to manage. It's a capacity to cultivate. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Wonderful. I think we need to remember that there are still a lot of cultures that are quite homogeneous and that they are protecting their communities, their traditions, their rituals in response to some of historic events of the past. And when we go there, especially if we plan to go there to live long term, we need to learn as much as we can in terms of culture, traditions, rituals, and language, and still be ready to, well, that it will take some time to get integrated. And then we will have to create new personality and identity in the culture and language. And one of the best examples for me is one of my Italian teachers of sociocultural anthropology, who went to Japan, who lived there for over 6 years, who studied there, who taught there, who married there, and then got back to Italy to teach like a Japanese man. He was still Italian and Japanese. He was switching between both personalities, but when he was in his Japanese self, maybe because he was talking to his wife or he was actually talking to Japanese students, he was Japanese. It was just incredible. And I think that's what's important to remember for us when we talk to migrant communities, that they need to be indeed open-minded. They need to respect ethics, values, rituals of the country where they're going, ready to adapt, to create a new personality, new identity, without erasing their first personality and identity, learn the language, culture, rituals, traditions, and so on. And of course, we need to remember that the host countries that are receiving all these waves of migrants be more receptive, more open, again, open-minded, and willing to learn about the cultures where these people are coming from. And then somewhere there, they will meet in the middle.
Yeah, and thank you for this great metaphor of clapping by both hands. I think that's the core of today's conversation, because I think that definitely this multicultural collaboration and integration, it's the how to say it, both sides road. It should be together. Guys, thank you so much. Kate, thanks for facilitating, for wonderful guests, Stephanie, Papabella. That was a huge pleasure. Dear participants, thanks for sharing. Thanks for your questions. I think it was invaluable, and see you next time, I hope. Thank you.